Hello, my name is Sophie Meiers. Thank you for telling me to. I remember back when I was a carefree child, completely infatuated with the world. I spent most of my time getting scraped up and bruised, climbing trees, and exploring the mountains that surrounded the house I grew up in. One memory sticks out to me especially. I remember the warmth of the sun illuminating the fine hairs on my arm as I giggled and ran through the sprinklers barefooted in my yard. I can faintly remember Carlos Santana blasting through the open windows of my old home. Every single time I hear that song now, nostalgia washes over me, and I'm transported back to that day, my tangled hair, and my heart hammering in my chest from the adrenaline that the cold water and running caused me.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, just play it for like a little bit.
The speaker thing. Just that cable that's sticking out from the speaker. Sorry, I unplugged. Just point at me when you want me to stop it.
Alright, good. Music has always been an extremely central part of my life. I began writing songs before I even got to elementary school, and I always found myself fascinated by the emotions that music was able to show me. This fascination has led me down many rabbit holes, and has eventually resulted in my life completely revolving around music. When I listen to music, I don't just listen to it, I immerse myself in it. I reflect on the metaphors, the chords, the memories, and the emotions behind these familiar songs. I listen to the music from the perspective of the musician. I feel what they feel, and I can almost relive the memories that caused them to write these songs. Music is so much more important to me than just something to ponder the aesthetic value of. Music is an archive of human culture, memory, emotion, and experience. I feel this deep sense of accountability to pursue this passion of mine, to explore boundaries of artistic human reflection, and to continually create for a purpose beyond materialistic ideals of beauty and success. This project started as a seed. I asked myself, what does music mean to me? Why is it important? I've had to think about this second question quite a bit, especially because most of my family are doctors and lawyers who don't seem too fond with my whole starving artist pipe dreams of using music to change the world. I've really had to consider and ask myself if I really want to spend my life pursuing what I love rather than an automatic safety net of having a college degree and a job to rely on. After I spent a lot of time thinking about what music means to me, the questions multiplied. I began wondering how music reflects society. What does music say about humans? How has this artistic creation changed the world in the past? So this semester at Animas High School, I've spent my time pondering the question, how does music influence society? Me, being a total mess, stuck in a state of constant existential crises, yes, that's plural, am in no way, shape, or form equipped to answer that question. Not even with all the caffeine, deep reading assignments, work time, and viable sanity in the world. I was encouraged to attempt to focus my kaleidoscopic, philosophical, vague ideas into a concise and clear focus. I needed to be able to at least tangibly be able to wrap my head around what I will spend the next couple of months attempting to explain. So after a couple hours of revisions of my research question, I decided to focus on a genre of music that is extremely special to me, as well as extremely influential throughout the course of history. Jazz. My question, once again, evolved to how jazz impacted society. I began researching academic articles, documentaries, literature, and the music itself to gain a bit of background research. I looked into what jazz technically is, how and why it emerged, how it became wildly successful, and the social political climate during the time that it was present. I quickly discovered what my intentions and existing knowledge had already showed me. Passionate, raw, unfiltered music became the spark that lit the fuse to jazz's momentum as a cultural movement that distinguished itself from any other popular genre of the time. Jazz music is defined as a distinct music originating in New Orleans around the beginning of the 20th century and subsequently developing through various increasingly complex styles, generally marked by intricate, propulsive rhythms, polyphonic ensemble playing, improvisatory, virtuistic solos, melodic freedom, and harmonic idiom ranging from simple diatonicism to chromatic atonality. That's a lot of words. Jazz music completely changed the world by combining many different types of music and cultures, legitimizing African American art, and inspiring a new generation of young artists to pursue what they thought they deserved. Jazz didn't follow rules. Jazz broke barriers. Jazz music provided eloquence and technical mastery and an understanding and respect of the rules, while at the same time kind of just stabbing back at these ideals of like what was good and what wasn't. Jazz music in nature was built off of its idea of artistic freedom. It was a music that spoke for itself. Jazz combined many different types of cultures and music in a way that nobody had ever really experienced before. A genre of music that celebrated every culture's differences helped to dismantle segregation in a time of Jim Crow laws and following the abolishment of slavery. Before jazz, the mainstream and a predominantly white music industry always regarded African American art as a lowbrow art form. Jazz music is extremely complex, requiring extensive knowledge of music theory to execute. It was a contradiction. The elegance and precision combined with the scattered and impromptu nature of jazz made a hybrid type of music that devoured the underground with such a passion and found its way into a mainstream. People began taking African American musicians and artists seriously. Musicians like John Coltrane rose to fame and became figureheads, leading the next generation of new artists. In many ways, jazz music was able to legitimize African American art. Young artists were inspired and motivated to demand the validation, success, and recognition that they deserved, as well as an even deeper-rooted validation of culture and identity and a very personal artistic level. Music is very personal. It is very individual and unique to the emotions of its creators. I like to think of art as the soul's dialogue with itself. In many ways, the vulnerability of music was able to open closed perspectives towards more open ones simply because of its rawness and the empathy that resulted from unfiltered emotion. I cannot even begin to describe how jazz has inspired me. It is still mind-blowing to me that we can charge music with so much meaning, so much intention, and so much power, that it can affect, inspire, and relate to millions of people. I want to be able to use my experiences, my pains, and my traumas to connect with people. I want them to feel my experiences. I want to feel theirs. I want to understand. And I also want to be understood. Looking at music as a form of archiving history has been a beautiful way to help me figure out myself too. Recently, I've been listening to my own music and how it's evolved over the past couple of years. And it's almost unreal to me how I can listen to a song and be completely swept away to a beautiful or heartbreaking memory in the blink of an eye. I like to think of songs as little jars containing memories, emotions, hidden secrets, encapsulated and frozen in time forever. I invite you to reflect on what music you listen to. How does it make you feel? What sort of memories do you recall when you hear it? What do these words say about you? What do the emotions reflect about how you feel or how you think? How has music influenced your decisions, your relationships, and your everyday life? What if you had the power to keep a memory frozen in time forever? Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. All right, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience and our panel.
Giant audience over here.
I know. Yes, Ellis, feel free to ask questions.
Questions? Panel?
Yeah, I want specific examples of how jazz did this. Like, you make these statements that jazz, like, inspired artists and that jazz helped to sort of integrate African American artists into the mainstream. How did it do that? Like, who did that? Like, what are some specific examples of that?
I guess a specific example that I didn't really elaborate on very much in my presentation would be John Coltrane, and I've looked into his history a lot, and like how he emerged was just basically him expressing, and he gained so much momentum by this elegance that he proved in his art, and he proved this beautiful like mastery of the music and the skill in this instrument that he played, and he started like gaining attention from more of a mainstream audience. And when younger people saw that, they were like kind of in awe at the fact that like they could be validated and celebrated in that way, and celebrated for the things that make them unique and the differences in their cultures. And
what's your evidence that they became more integrated into mainstream society? Like, how do you know? Is it record sales? Is it like, what did you look at to know that?
I guess that, I don't know, it's even known in history as the jazz age.
Mm-hmm.
And so jazz became more of a symbol for like this whole generation, and it took over the mainstream. Like, the evidence of it taking over the mainstream is in the record sales, in the articles and the publications, and like these musicians playing shows and like getting recognition.
Are you saying that like the jazz culture originated in like the African American communities, or do you think that the fact that this type of music was more diverse was simply because, like you were saying, it was right at the end of segregation, like it was I feel like somewhat of a turning point
Yeah. I feel like jazz emerged from a combination of many different factors. If you look at like what jazz actually is, there's a lot of European influence with the way it uses melodies and harmonies, and also a lot of African influence with the way it uses rhythm and the way that it uses an instrument to express itself like a voice. So, I mean, it kind of emerged when there's this, if you go back to New Orleans, it's a port city in a time where there's so many immigrants pouring in, there's so much new life, like America is bustling, and there were just so many different types of people that were playing their own identity, like with blues or marching bands, and it kind of just like blended together eventually to create what we now call jazz.
Do you think, like, so you were saying how this is, jazz kind of, it was African American people, they were expressing their culture is infused into their music. Do you think that contributed to society becoming, like, driving towards more, like, equal rights with different races? Do you think music had a large contribution in that?
Yes, definitely. I think that the very raw, vulnerable nature of music made it easier for people to, like, relate to in a sense and accept, and it's easier to see through the eyes of someone who's like, for example, demanding equal rights, and hear that and like hear it in the lyrics and the tone and feel that. It's much different than just like growing up in a bubble, you know. They were exposed to the music, they were around it, and they enjoyed it, and that began to break down like social boundaries as far as like people integrating in a like, I don't know, just a bar complex.
And can you give a couple examples of maybe pieces of art that did that? Like any songs that come to mind as kind of turning point?
I think of John Coltrane's A Love Supreme as a really critical turning point that exemplified these like boundaries coming together, and like even the lyricism and the metaphors that are just in the album cover itself, it began to like pick up a lot of recognition, especially in like different movements such as the Harlem Renaissance. That was all about like African American literature and poetry, and that was definitely a big part of it. Sorry, if that was all.
My other question is just like, can you give me a general like time frame for this? Like when you're talking about the emergence of jazz, I don't actually know when that happened.
So this is the early 1900s.
Okay.
Yeah, around that time. 1920s, roaring 20s were like huge for jazz music.
Okay, so you're looking at mostly like
Yeah, late
1910,
18.
late 1800s, early like
Yeah.
until the Depression.
All right, thanks, Sophie. Step outside for a moment, please. Okay, awkward clap panel, like we do for everyone else.